When it comes to voting in a country of over 300 million people, it's easy to feel like an individual vote might not hold much weight. It's often pointed out that the last presidential election in 2016 was narrowly decided, but sometimes I think it's a little bit hard to grasp exactly what that means when we're talking on the scale of hundreds of millions of votes. I've been taking a look at some of the data from that election, and for me, some of the numbers were pretty striking. As you probably know, it's not a simple majority, but 538 Electoral College votes allocated among states that determine U.S. presidential elections. With that in mind, let's first take a look at the actual 2016 results. I'll use the traditional convention of red for the Republican Party and blue for the Democratic Party. This map shows how each state voted, and the bar represents all 538 Electoral College votes. A candidate has to receive over half of these, or 270, to win, indicated here with a dashed line. In 2016, the Republican candidate won with 304 electoral votes. Now, let's consider a hypothetical scenario. For every 25 voters, not Electoral College voters, but normal voters, like the great majority of us, for every 25 who voted for the Republican candidate in 2016, imagine one of those 25 had cast their ballot in the opposite direction. What would be the effect? Well, the new electoral map would look like this, with 5 states shifting their electoral votes, giving a total of 317 to the Democratic candidate, a completely different result. What about in the opposite direction? Let's say 1 out of every 25 voters who voted for the Democratic candidate in 2016 had instead voted for the Republican candidate. What happens? In that case, again, 5 states would have changed, this time from blue to red, adding 33 electoral votes to the 304 that were actually received. So, the effect of 1 out of 25 voters within a party, that's somewhat impressive, but the numbers get more striking when we consider some specific states individually. For example, Minnesota voted for the Democratic candidate in 2016 and was one of the 5 states whose result changed in our hypothetical 1 out of 25 shift. But it turns out to be more dramatic than that. Minnesota would have gone red with a shift in not just 1 out of 25 Democratic votes, but 1 out of 62. Again, that means that for every 62 Minnesota voters who voted for the Democratic candidate, if just 1 had voted in the other direction, the 10 Electoral College votes associated with that state would have flipped to red. In Florida, a flip from red to blue would have happened with a change in 1 out of 76 Republican votes. In Pennsylvania, it's 1 out of 85. Wisconsin, 1 out of 103. New Hampshire, 1 out of 255. And Michigan's 16 Electoral College votes would have shifted from Republican to Democrat if just 1 out of every 392 individuals who voted for the Republican candidate had instead voted for the Democrat. That's less than 0.26% of those voters. Now, of course, this is oversimplified, and it would be more relevant to think about these numbers in terms of overall net shifts by considering other factors like votes changing in both directions, votes that go to candidates from other parties, and also what happens if new voters are added. An estimated 4 out of 10, roughly 40% of eligible voters, didn't vote in the 2016 election, leaving over 92 million potential ballots uncast. So factors like those could also have big impacts. However, the bigger point here is that viewing your vote, at least a vote in the presidential race, as one vote out of hundreds of millions might not be the best way to think about it. As with all numbers and statistics, it's really important to consider them in context, not really differently than how it's important to interpret something somebody says or writes in context. And in this case, the context of the election process and relatively narrow splits in many states at least makes an argument that that vote might turn out to be more influential than it might otherwise seem. And remember too that there will be few, if any, cases where there aren't additional issues or offices on the ballot. Your one vote will hold proportionally more weight as you move from voting from a national to a state to a local level. As with each step, it becomes a larger proportion of the total votes cast. Hopefully that is helpful, or at least offers maybe a new perspective to think about. And if you're interested in similar videos that look at the science and data around current issues, feel free to subscribe to the channel and like and share this video.